Alright, so this excavator has been down for almost a year, I think, mainly because of this. So whoever owned this excavator before my dad did some, I don't know, gobble jobs, I guess. So I think that's actually a rod from a hydraulic cylinder. You can see the chrome on it. That's not really a problem though. The problem is these bosses are completely destroyed. So the boom itself, I think it's fine, but the bosses are just disintegrated. See, there's like a kind of a sleeve that's in there. Actually, that's a bushing. I can see the groove in it. That's a bushing like you would see inside of the boom. So normally there's not a bushing in this area. That's just the boss. So normally that's just mild steel or slightly hardened steel. Nothing like a bushing, which is very hard. So I couldn't tell you exactly what caused this, but I can tell you that we're gonna fix it. Actually, this part of the boom here is cast. This whole part right here is cast, and then they weld it on right here, and that's steel. But like I said, the boom is fine. It's the bosses and the steel around the bosses that's the problem. So my dad had to stop using this because literally the boom was about to fall off. This pin needs to go in. It's not even through right here. So there's nothing connecting right now. I'm hoping that we can push that pin in enough where it does something over there, just so we can lift the boom and bring it over to my place over there. I don't want to work on it over here. It's a lot easier over next to my garage. So let's see if we can make something happen so we can get this thing moved. The deal with this excavator is that my dad needs it for just a few more projects, and then he plans on selling it. And this is a pretty old machine. It's pretty beat up. It's pretty worn out. So we're not going to do like a perfect job on it, but let's do a halfway decent job anyways. The right way to do it is to remove the cab so that we can get to this side of that area. You can see it punched a hole through there, and I would actually just cut a hole there, but the controls are right there, so it's not going to do anything to cut a hole there to access that. So we're going to have to do some things that aren't really the right way to do it, but it's the best we're going to be able to do.
Nope. Bouncing. Try it now. Huh? Try it. Try it.
Take 2 little pieces of rebar and stick it on the top of that. See if that'll hold it. Might still be okay.
Considerably longer than it was.
This one's too long because it's hitting the bushing. So
yeah.
These ones need to start being shorter.
How many more do you think you want?
They can only be like 1.5 inches. But I mean, the more the better. I don't know if this is gonna work. I just felt in there and it's completely like a nice consistent taper. So it's just gonna push this thing out, but we can try it. If these things are just the right size, they might make it so it works. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so for those of you that have watched my channel for the last few videos, you know that I got this lathe. This has a 40-inch capacity of length, 14 inches in diameter. So I'm going to go ahead and machine down the bosses for this machine, which I chose 1018 steel just because it's a little bit harder than mild steel, but it's not too hard. It's very workable. This is just for the bosses, so the pin should not be moving inside of here, so it doesn't need a whole bunch of hardness in it. It doesn't need a whole bunch of abrasive resistance. The pin is going to stay stationary inside of here, so really we just need somewhat of a thick wall on it, and that's why I chose a 5-inch diameter. The pin is about 2 3/4 or 70 millimeters. So for those of you that don't know a lot about the whole operation going on right here, the boss is not the bushing. The bushing is hardened so that the pin can move inside of it all the time, and with grease it shouldn't wear out. But the boss can be a much softer material than the bushing, because the pin should not be moving inside the boss. It should stay stationary on both sides of the boom. So let's get these bored and turned down into the biggest I can. So the outside diameter, I could just leave the way it is right now, because it really doesn't have to be perfect on the outside. It's just going to get all welded. But I will machine it down just because it's just something I think should be done. We'll also bore it out and face it. And I am new to the lathe. So in my last video where I got this lathe, I changed the chuck out to a new 3-jaw that's reversible. But I actually got a 4-jaw too. But I don't really need it right now for the bosses. So let's just keep this on here and we'll work with this for right now. That's really close. Wow, that just barely worked. Okay, so being that this piece was cut with a bandsaw, the face of this is not anywhere near perfect. So what I want to do is just face it down. That way I can turn it around, slide it back, and the back end should hit all around, and then it should be pretty good after that. And when I turn it around, I'll reverse these jaws so that this piece is brought out more. That way I can bore into it without having to worry about hitting the chuck on the backside. I don't know if I can get it down that small. Yeah, I guess I can. Okay, so that's 70.10 millimeters, which is actually just a little bit tighter than the bushing is. The bushing is like 70.15, and I'm not exactly happy with the fit on that. That's supposed to be a OEM bushing. And there's a little bit more slop than I would like to see, but at least if we can get the bosses a little bit better than that. I'll show you the fit in a second. But for right now, I just want to chamfer all the edges, make it look fancy. Doesn't really need it, but let's just do it. I'll just keep the boring bar on here to do that. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but we can just sort of angle it. We'll do like a double chamfer. The one I just did is more for the outside, and this one will be more to guide the pin into place. Well, I guess this one kind of took over the other one, but that's fine. So here's the pin. Here's the bushing that I got for it. See how much slop there is? Not exactly happy with that, but what am I gonna do? But look how this fits. I mean, you can hear there's a little bit of slop, but it's not near as much as the bushing. In my theory, if I can machine it down to as good as the bushing, then that's good, but I think I did a little better. So let's just make up another one, and then we got a whole bunch of work to cut out the ears and weld these in. So I'm just getting this machine set up to remove the boom. Right now my dad's running and getting these special metric JIS fittings, which is like Japanese industry standard fittings, but they're metric, specifically for komatsu.
Thing underneath that ram.
Yeah.
She likes to use a shovel.
Air wagon.
Oh,
With a
That's-
shovel.
that's a, oh,
You'd think she'd never want anything to do with a shovel, but small,
No, small.
smart.
Yeah.
It comes with age. It's called wisdom.
No,
You
you're
don't. No,
false.
listen.
Yeah, we just want it in there as much as possible. That's probably good enough. Do you have another one that you could protect the cab with?
I got that one.
So you can see somebody had put a hardened bushing in here to try to probably make up some slop in there. I have no idea what they tried to do here, but whatever it is, it's just a big cobble job. So we need to fix all this. And I think the best way to go about this is there's two pieces of steel here. One is 3/4 and the other is 1 inch. The 1 inch piece is probably a little bit harder, and that has the boss built into it. And then the 3/4 carries through down. That's part of the whole frame. So they welded them together, kind of stepped them, overlapped them. So I think what I'm going to do is make a straight cut going across here, and then I'm going to make another cut just on the inner piece, so that the outer piece here stays here, the inner piece gets cut out all the way down to the weld here. And then I'm going to fabricate a new piece of steel for here, two pieces, 1 3/4 and 1 inch, and I'll overlap them so that the outer one starts here. I'll weld a new piece on from here up, and then the inner piece will get welded all the way from the bottom here all the way to the top with a slight step like that, so that they're overlapped right here. And it's going to be a little bit tricky because on this side I don't have much of an access from the back to weld. I could probably weld some, but not a lot, and probably not a great weld either. So we're going to bevel everything a lot and weld this one mostly from the inside, knowing that it's going to move in, because as we're welding from the inside, it's going to pull that piece this way. So I'm going to start out like 1 degree that way. Hopefully it'll be straight. We'll keep the hole in the middle open, and then that way when I put in the bosses, I can set the bosses however I want. That way if this piece of steel is moved just slightly more than I wanted or less than I wanted, it doesn't matter because the boss will be separate. I'll weld that in afterwards. So I have a reference line right here. So I know that the inside of the boss needs to be right on that line, and then the bottom of the boss, the inside of the boss, from here up will be 3 inches. And that's about the best reference I have right now because everything is so much bigger than it needs to be. I have no reference to where this old boss was. That's just like a close idea of where it should be. But as long as these are equal from here to here and then from here to here, so 2 different ways, it kind of triangulates it. As long as they're equal, it should be fine. This new boss could even be a little bit up, could be a little bit over, doesn't really matter too much, but we'll try to retain what they had originally the best we can. and I'm gonna make the new piece go up a little bit more to have more material over the boss. We might need that fire extinguisher. We got a fire down here.
Get back here too.
So I'm going to go ahead and gouge these welds out to take this piece of 1 inch out of the inside here. They're pretty thick welds. So a few weeks ago I ordered a gouging tip for my plasma cutter, which is basically just, I think it's just a bigger hole in it is all it is. Like if you compare, the tip on the left is just a normal plasma tip. I think it's 70 or 80 amps. And the one on the right is for gouging. The only difference I see is the hole. Let's see it.
Sweet sound of success right there.
Alright, so this is grade 50 structural steel, so it's a little bit stronger than mild steel, but it's nothing crazy. I'm pretty sure that's what they use for most of the frames of these excavators. Not a whole lot of abrasion resistance, but it doesn't need it. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and give this a nice bevel. Alright, so we got this piece all cut out, beveled, ground it down. So this piece has a little bit more meat over here. All this is about at least 3/4 of an inch extra on the low points and about 1.5 inches on the high points. There's just a lot of extra meat. So at this point, what we're going to do is mark out where the boss is going to go, cut that out, and then we can bring this back and weld it in. And we got to get our plate cut for the inside, which is going to kind of match this but be set in. All right, so I've got that all welded in right there. I was switching back and forth between the stick welder on DC 7018 rods and then the MIG welder flux core 0.045. The duty cycle on my MIG welder isn't great, so I was using a stick welder in the meantime while waiting for that to cycle. Anyways, so the next task here is going to be, I'm going to remove this. Hopefully it doesn't move too much. It's probably going to move a little bit, but we decided on this side that we're not going to cut these ears off. I'm just going to blow out this hole to the size that I need for the bosses, and then we're going to weld that in. I'm going to have to kind of like bevel the insides of these holes or bores or whatever you want to call them, so that we can get a lot of weld around that boss, because this is 1 3/4 inches, so we need to be able to reach in from both sides and weld it so it's fully welded, so there's not like this gap in the middle that's not welded. So the sequence of things keeps changing just slightly, but basically I can't set the inner plate there until I put the boss in, because I want to weld the boss to this plate first, then put the other plate on and then weld it to that one as well. If I put the plate on right now and then put the boss in, then I won't get penetration on the inside because I can't weld that much from the back side. This one I can, but I can't put the boss in until I get the boss set on both sides at once. So I need to work on this first so that I can set the bosses. Alright, so the next thing I want to do here is just give this a little bit more meat on the back side here. I'm sure it doesn't really need it, but most of your forces are going to be pulling and pushing this way. So if you're pulling it that way, that whole area seems weak to me. So what I'd like to do is give this like a little mohawk. I want to come up and around like that. That way it connects this back reinforcing piece all the way to up here, so that that piece can't go that way, because I think that's going to be the one direction that it could possibly go if it ever fails. So on this side, I'm going to match everything that I did over there. So I'd like to get that side settled first. Then to match this side, I'm going to make a piece of cardboard with the hole cut out in the center, so that I can just take that piece, bring it over to here, match the hole up, and then it will show me exactly what kind of piece I need to make over here. So that 3/4 inch plate is not too bad on the plasma cutter. That 1 inch plate was a nightmare to try to cut that on the plasma cutter. I ended up using the torch for over half of the cut. It'll do 1 inch, but if you stop, the slag fills in and you can't get it going again. It's just ridiculous. And then the slag will spit back at you and it'll ruin the tip. Plus it's kind of dangerous too. So I'm not even gonna try 1 inch plate anymore. We're just gonna use 3/4 for this. And if I need to cut any more 1 inch, I'm just doing it with a torch. So what I did is cut out a piece of cardboard using the hole to align it to exactly the shape of this whole thing here. And I have a measuring point here, a measuring point here, and then that hole. And when you line up all three of these, it gives you the exact pattern that you need to match over on this side. And this is probably not really needed, but it'll make it look halfway decent. So now I have a 1/2 inch gap over there. That part is touching. The hole is perfectly aligned. So now all I need to do is trace the back side here. And then the piece that goes on the top, the mohawk, can just be cut out and added onto this to match that. very frozen bushing. The real test is gonna be swinging left to right.
Everything clear?
Yeah. There's absolutely zero movement in that joint.
Oh, I see that.
Try to bring the boom in so it doesn't clank around so much, and then just sort of abruptly stop.
Bring the boom in.
Yeah. That's good.
Now swing sideways.
Yeah, let me Alright, so my work is done here. I got that all fixed up for my dad. He made this to go on here to retain the pin, so it kind of gets welded onto there. But we've been waiting for it to stop raining to do that. I don't think that pin's going anywhere for a while, but that's the right way to do it. You just weld on those two little blocks that are threaded, and then that keeps the pin in there. So the deal with this excavator is that the guy that he got it from, I don't know if it was him or the guy before him, but they did a whole bunch of things wrong. And what was happening was the pin was actually rotating in the bosses instead of rotating on the boom. So there's bushings inside of the boom, and normally the pin rotates inside of those bushings. Those bushings are hardened, the pin is hardened, but these outer ears are not hardened, so they're not supposed to spin. So you guys saw in the beginning of the video, the guy did all kinds of cobble jobs. He put a hardened bushing inside of there, welded everything up, all popcorn weld all over the place, and nothing worked. He got by for a while like that, and my dad got this excavator for pretty cheap. Part of that was because of that. So I would consider this the proper way to do this. It did take a lot of work. There might have been other options that were less labor intensive, but I think that this is the only way that I feel good about doing this. Now, obviously, it doesn't look great adding on that steel on the outside, but I feel much better about it than to just have a little bit of steel on top of that boss. And like I said earlier, I think you could just weld the bottom side of the boss and it would probably stay in there and you'd probably never have problems. But we're in there and we're doing it, so let's just beef it up a lot more than normal. And I started out doing a lot of the welding with the MIG welder with flux core .045, but I very quickly switched to just all 7018 stick welding, 1/8 inch DC. And so I would say 80-85% of the welding in there is with the stick welder. And I have never been that great at making stick welding look good, but I definitely improved a lot on this project. I actually feel much more confident in my stick welding than I did before. One thing I learned is that when you're going uphill, you got to push instead of pulling. I always thought you pull everything with stick welding. I didn't realize that you had to push when you're going uphill. But yeah, you want like a slight 5 to 10 degree angle upward as you're stick welding up. So once I figured that out, the welding went so much better and I was actually having fun with it. Also, I got a lot better at torching. Usually I use the plasma cutter, but on thicker stuff like this, you can't really use it unless you have some industrial setup, like 200 amp. You know, 1 inch is max, but if you stop, you can't get started again. So even 3/4 is, plasma cutter's kind of struggling with it. But the torch doesn't care. I got a new tip for the torch that can cut up to 2 or 2.5 inches, and that made a huge difference. So as of right now, my dad is basically just fixing this up and he's going to sell it. He might buy a smaller excavator, but he really doesn't need a bigger one. He built his house, he's done with that project. He doesn't really have a lot of dirt to move. So basically we just need to get this thing to the point where we can sell it, and possibly he might buy a smaller one, or maybe not even, maybe he'll just use mine. So he is going to do a video about fixing up the rest of this excavator. Needs to do a lot of work on the cylinders to fix a lot of different leaks, final drive leaks, there's diesel leaks, maybe put some plexiglass on the side there, muffler, exhaust work, possibly retooth that. I don't know, there's a whole bunch of things going on with this thumb, but I don't know if it's really worth doing anything. Maybe I can make something on the lathe to tighten this up a little bit. Well, I definitely could, but we'll see if it's on the menu or not. Yeah, maybe I should do that. This thing is really rattling. I mean, the bottom of that thing moves like almost a foot. Surprisingly, this isn't that bad. Just need some shims on the side. This excavator's got some ghosts with it though. I probably shouldn't be telling you guys this, but the guy that we've got this from told us that somebody was actually killed on this machine. I guess he was getting off and the safety lock wasn't working and it ended up smushing him into a tree or something. I can't remember what the guy said, but yeah, it's pretty horrible. Probably a good idea to just get rid of this thing as soon as possible. It does start right up though. The engine is so healthy. But anyways, that's it for this video, guys. And just so you know, I did do a video about a bushing puller and pusher that I set up. That'll be a short video, but that'll be out very soon. So I will see you guys on that video.